Now another important group of drugs is another internal mechanism by which antibiotics work is, so we've discussed these, right? So another important mechanism by which antibiotics work is by inhibiting DNA replication. Okay, so the antibiotics that work by this mechanism is fluoroquinolones, right? So how do fluoroquinolones work? They work by inhibiting DNA replication. So again, this is your bacteria, right? And the bacteria has this DNA, right? This free floating DNA, nucleoid, right? So the bacteria, each bacteria, like every other organism, it has to divide, right? So one bacteria becomes 2, 2 to 4, you get the idea, right? So if the bacteria has to cause infection, if the bacteria wants to survive within the body, it has to continually divide, right? Because the old bacteria is going to die out. So if we stop by any mechanism, if we give an antibiotic that can stop this bacterial cell division, then also we can kill the bacteria in a way, right? And we can treat the infection. So antibiotics such as fluoroquinolone works by inhibiting DNA replication of the bacteria. So if you studied, if you remember, or if you've studied this in first year, in the process of DNA replication, this is your DNA, right? See, this is your DNA, right? So this DNA is present in a helical structure, winded structure, right? Twisted structure, right? So in order to divide, DNA replication basically means in the DNA replication you have to unwind this DNA, right? So this twisted thing, you got to make them into 2 straight strands, and then after that you make copies of new strands of DNA. So and after that each of these copies goes to a new cell, daughter cell. So from one cell you make copies of the DNA, and then each of these DNA go to 2 cells. So that is how bacteria divides, right? In order for bacterial division, you have to divide the bacterial DNA first, right? And in order to divide the DNA, you have to unwind this DNA. So this unwinding of the DNA, it's a very complicated process. So in the process of unwinding, there is a enzyme, right? Let me draw this enzyme in green. So there is an enzyme that is required to unwind this DNA, right? So and this enzyme is known as topoisomerase 2 and topoisomerase 4. And most important is topoisomerase 2. So this topoisomerase enzyme, let's keep it simple. So this topoisomerase enzyme, this topoisomerase enzyme is required to actually unwind the DNA, right? So if you give a drug, right, for example, you gave this drug, this is a fluoroquinolone, an example would be ciprofloxacin, levofloxacin. I think you've heard of the drug ciprofloxacin, right? It's very common. It's given in enteric fever, typhoid, all of those conditions, right? So if you give ciprofloxacin, how ciprofloxacin works is it's going to come and bind with this topoisomerase enzyme, and it inhibits it. When the topoisomerase enzyme is inhibited, then the DNA unwinding cannot happen, because remember I told you, in order for the DNA to unwind successfully, you need the topoisomerase enzyme. So when this antibiotic inhibits the topoisomerase enzyme, DNA cannot unwind. If the DNA cannot unwind, then if there won't be 2 strands, new DNA cannot be produced. So if the new DNA cannot be produced, then the DNA replication is inhibited, right? And whenever the DNA cannot replicate, the one bacteria cannot divide into 2 bacteria. So we have successfully inhibited or stopped bacterial growth, and then this remaining bacteria which cannot divide is then killed by the body's immune system, right? So this is yet another way by how antibiotics work. Some antibiotics work by inhibiting DNA replication, and so these are the major ways, right? And one last mechanisms by which antibiotics work is by there are some other specific mechanisms, such as some antibiotics work by inhibiting the metabolism of the bacteria, all right? So these are a little bit more complicated. For example, these antibiotics such as sulfonamides, right, they work by inhibiting folic acid synthesis. So for example, a bacteria requires folic acid, right? Right, because why does the bacteria require folic acid? For the same reason why we require folic acid. Folic acid is basically the vitamin. So folic acid is vitamin B9, right? So folic acid is vitamin B9. So basically folic acid is required for DNA replication again, right? DNA replication. But the difference between human beings and bacteria is that bacteria, unlike we human beings, we get vitamin B9 or folic acid from our diet, right? So we don't need to synthesize, we don't make our folic acid, we just get the folic acid from the diet, right? But bacteria, not apart, different from human cells, what bacteria do it, they need to make folic acid, right? So there is this huge pathway, right? So there is this huge pathway by which the bacteria make folic acid, and there are so many enzymes in this pathway. So antibiotics such as sulfonamides, what do they do is this sulfonamide comes and it inhibits one of these enzymes that are required in folic acid synthesis pathway of the bacteria. Whenever these enzymes that are required in folic acid synthesis, the folic acid is no longer produced in the bacteria. Whenever there is no folic acid, whenever there is no folic acid, there is no DNA replication, because this folic acid is required to carry the nucleotides purine and pyrimidines in the DNA replication process, right? So whenever there is no vitamin B9, there is no transport mechanism for purines and pyrimidines, right? So I will get to this topic later on as well when we study sulfonamides separately. So just in long story short, sulfonamides inhibit folic acid synthesis. Without folic acid, DNA replication is inhibited, right? So that's how bacteria these antibiotics can work. Another antibiotics such as trimethoprim, it also works similar to sulfonamide. That is, sulfonamide works by inhibiting one enzyme in the folic acid pathway, whereas trimethoprim works by inhibiting another enzyme. So they work by inhibiting enzymes in the same pathway, but sulfonamide inhibits one enzyme, whereas trimethoprim inhibits another enzyme, right? So both of them work by inhibiting folic acid synthesis. And there are some antibiotics such as metronidazole whose mechanisms are not clear, right? So that you're not supposed to worry about, right? You don't have to worry about that. So that is so with this we have a clear concept or a good summary regarding the types of antibiotics, right? In this video I've discussed the mechanism of every single antibiotic that you need to study for your exams, right? So as a quick recap, some antibiotics work by inhibiting the cell wall, right? Other antibiotics work by inhibiting cell membrane. Some work by inhibiting protein synthesis such as tetracycline macrolides, right? Some work by inhibiting or misreading of proteins, or producing aberrant or wrong or toxic proteins, right? And you discussed this mechanism. And others such as fluoroquinolones work by inhibiting DNA replication by inhibiting topoisomerase enzymes, right? And some others such as sulfonamides and trimethoprim, they work by inhibiting different metabolic pathways such as folic acid synthesis pathway. So all in all, these are the 6 mechanisms by which antibiotics work, right? And this is very, very important for your exams, right? I hope that was clear. And if you want these notes, this is literally a screenshot from my own notes these are my notes that I made for my own exam preparation. So if you want these notes, you can always check out the comment section. All the links for these notes are in the comment section down below. Hope this was helpful, right? Good, right? So keeping all these things in mind, I came up with this whole Better Notes channel, YouTube channel. So apart from this YouTube channel which you are watching right now, I also have tuition. So I also give tuition. So if you're interested in tuitions, you can contact me. I also have a Telegram group where like almost 200 plus students from different medical colleges are already added in a couple of my Telegram groups, where they can ask me questions, or you can ask questions. I will try to help you guys in this Telegram group, or your friends might even help you. So it's like we have Telegram groups to discuss questions and like things you're struggling with in general. So make sure you join the Telegram group. And I have notes as well, the notes that I personally use for my own exam preparation, which a lot of my juniors absolutely love. Okay, thankfully they like it, right? So if you want these notes, and apart from the notes, I also have clinical videos. This is upcoming, right? So hopefully I'm also planning with my friends to make some clinical videos within the hospital itself, so that you guys can have a little bit more help on the clinical side of things as well. So if you are interested in any of these, the tuitions, the notes, the Telegram groups, all of this, the link to all of it can be found in the comment section, right? So the first comment in the comment section. You can find the links to all of it, so make sure you check out the comment section.